I love this passage in James 1, verse 2. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Now, in the NIV, it said, instead of produces steadfastness, it says, so that you may persevere, and perseverance will produce maturity. So, in other words, James is saying here that trial is a good thing in the Christian life. And he says, count it all joy, brother. Count it all joy when you go through trials, because that trial is going to teach you to persevere, and it's going to mature you in the faith. Now, I think of David. When David was going through his trial, God was maturing David, and he was building perseverance in David, because David was anointed as king as a boy, but I think it was 14 years after he was anointed that he actually became king. And during that time, he went through a series of trials that was maturing him. And what does maturity looks like? Oftentimes when we think of maturity, we think about, the Christian who makes all the right choices and make all the wise decisions and everything that looks good on the outside. But in actuality, the mature Christian is one who has learned what it is to depend on God. And if you think back to David was a very successful king, because David learned what it was and how to rely on God. And because David relied on God, he was able to be successful in all his battles, and in everything that he put his mind to and his hands to, he was successful, because he was not relying on his own strength. He was relying on God to make him successful in whatever he does. And so here James is telling us as believers that we need to have the same attitude. When we face trials, we need to count it joy. Why? Because we need to mature in our faith. We need to get to a place of complete dependence on God. We need to get to a place of complete dependence on God, like David was. And so often when we go through trials as Christians, we have this tendency to pray and ask God to take it away or not let us, go down certain paths. But what if, as Christians, when we go through that trials, what if James is saying to us, don't pray your trials away. Don't want God to take your trials away. Because if you don't go through these trials and you don't learn to depend on God, you will not mature in the faith. And so my challenge to you is, when you are going through trials, ask the Lord to meet you in that trial. And every single time you go through a different trial, you are going to recognize that your attitude in that trial will change. Ask the Lord for his peace in that trial, because the peace of God in any trial, no matter what, makes that trial very small. The peace of God in any trial makes that trial very small. And so when you have gone through, great or small, whatever the trial is, when you go through any trial and the Lord meets you on that journey, when you get out to the other end of that trial and you are asked this question, would you want to go through that again? Your answer is not going to be quickly, no. It is going to be a long pause. You know why? Because any believer in this life, no matter what you are going through, when you encounter Jesus Christ on your journey, everything else pales in comparison. Everything else pales in comparison. And the journey that you were just on, that just shook your whole world, becomes so small that you are not even sure if you want to go on that journey again. And as a matter of fact, you are even thinking, that was so awesome, I want to do it again. But so many believers miss out on that opportunity. Because when we're going through hardship, we are praying, Lord, make it better. Lord, take it away. Lord, please stop. Lord, stop. You just want it to be over. Meanwhile, the Lord is calling you out into the water like he does Peter to experience something amazing. And every single time you go through a trial, the first time you go through a trial and you experience God on that trial, whether through his peace that surpasses your understanding, whether through, whatever it is or however it is that he meets you on that journey, you're not going to be afraid to go on another trial. And you're not going to be afraid to go on another trial. And you're not going to be afraid to go on another trial, because you know that the Lord will meet you in your trials. And even if it's just his peace that he gives you, I guarantee you, the peace of God is like none other. It is so unexplainable that you are going through something that should be so traumatic, but it phases you not. It phases you not. And so when you have that peace in you, given to you by God, every trial just seems so small because you are not moved by them. And so I want to challenge you today, if you are going through a trial, which in today's world, there are a lot of people that are going through a trial, but I want to say to you, take the Lord at his word. Trust him with everything. Believe his word, trust him at it. And if he is not, if he is not doing what he says he will in his word, call him out on it. Lord, you said this. I don't understand. But in that, listen to me and listen to me well. You need to stop running to people when you're going through your trials. Go in your room, close the door, get down on your knees, and pray to your Father, and he will hear you. So often the Christian journey is a theatrical display of how Christian we are. And we need to remove all the theater, just take it away, show it away. We need to go in our closets, in our quiet space, in our room, and you and the Lord, you need to sit there and you need to pour that heart out to him. And let the God who says, I am close to the brokenhearted, meet you where you're at.